we'll just take a look at what the president says and then take it apart.
And so if your main argument for how to grow the economy is, I knew how to make a lot of money for investors, then you're missing what this job is about. It doesn't mean you weren't good at private equity, but that's not what my job is as president. My job is to take into account everybody, not just some. My job is to make sure that the country is growing not just now, but 10 years from now and 20 years from now. And so, to repeat, this is not a distraction. This is what this campaign is going to be about, is what is a strategy for us.
So, Michael, the word in there, distraction, was a response to Cory Booker, who had said these ads are taking us off track. The president, I think Major's exactly right. The president wants in this fight, and they want to get Mitt Romney defined before everybody goes off to those vacations and stops paying attention. But others that I've talked to say, well, this wasn't presidential. This was him being sort of political hack in the middle of hosting the NATO leaders. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think that's probably a right assessment. It's also a little bit naive because there is nothing. I mean, there's nothing that's never political almost about a presidency ever. But certainly in the 6 months before a re-election campaign, it's naive to think that a president isn't going to be political. I do think, that the line that they're walking is, and I mean not walking, crossing over, barreling over, is in part a test of this because they're not putting a lot of money behind these ads at this moment, and so to some extent what they want to see and what they're testing and they're pushing is to see where are these things having an effect, so that they know when they do put the tens and 20 and 30 and 40 million dollars behind some of this stuff, how do they do it, and that's part. They need the president in the game to kind of push that test.
And the president was in that quote and in other times setting up this idea that if you're Governor Romney, and you've talked about your business career, it's all fair game. This is your single attribute that you're running on. Romney's response mostly was to say, answer it quickly and pivot back to the president, or not answer it at all.
Or not answer it at all.
And pivot back to the president.
I mean, I think for 3 or 4 days, the Romney campaign was content to let Democrats squabble this out among themselves. And I talked to the Romney campaign about this, and they sort of follow the John Boehner rule, which is if your opponent is going to jump off a bridge, don't stop him, or allow him to jump. If the suicide is going on, I think that's far too strong a word, let it play out. I think that's tactical. At some point, and the Romney campaign concedes this, Mitt Romney is going to have to wrap his arms around this and explain to the country what private equity meant to him, the decisions he made, the way he made them, and the body of work he's done in this country, and why that prepares him to be president.
And let me just say, there are two groups of people who are not particularly satisfied with Romney's answers to date. Those are other Republicans who fear that the same kinds of arguments could be made in some way or another, and generally about business against them, and they want their standard bearer to give it an answer better. And the private equity people themselves, who are squirming right now, in the heat, and they want him to stand up and give a better defense of what they do.